Hello, and welcome to Outer Spaces, a podcast dedicated to empowering designers and contractors in the outdoor living space.
Through this show, we hope to create a powerful resource for you, someone who is trying to grow their company but might not have all the tools and processes to do so.
On Outer Spaces, we are passionate about breaking the chains of small mindsets and helping contractors just like you take control of their businesses and their lives. My name is Joshua Gillow.
And I'm Dwayne Drawn.
Through our 40 years of combined dirt under the nails experience, we look forward to sharing tips, strategies, and other contractor success stories here on the Outer Spaces podcast.
Without further ado, let's get on with the show.
Hello and welcome back to the Outer Spaces podcast. This is your host, Joshua Gillow, alongside my trusty sidekick here, Dwayne Drawn. What's going on, Dwayne?
What's going on, man? Just making it happen day by day. You know, that UPW still drained me. And so I'm noticing, like, I think some people come back and they're just like fired up. I noticed from number 3 that I come back and I'm sort of down for 3 or 4 days. And then after like the 4th or 5th day, that's when I juice up and just start killing the world. So I'm sort of going through that low right now and I'm about to fire up and just take off and just kill it. But other than that, man, I'm living a dream, enjoying everything. And I'm learning how to feel and become that person of what we're doing. Like, we're breaking records like crazy. I was going through some numbers last night and we've shattered every record that we've ever put out in business. I mean, it's insane.
That's awesome, dude. I love that. And yeah, I'm feeling the same way, dude. It's like this emotional hangover after going through 4 days of intense soul digging and love and all that good stuff. And, you know, I come back sometimes in the beginning, I was just ramped up, ready to rip the world apart. And other times here, now this is number 4 for me. It's a reckoning time. It's a time to go through and process what's happened and what you're thinking about, and to put it in perspective and how it's going to impact your life. So, I too as well have been, kind of more laid back this time around, coming back into the world, but still ready, jacked, more focused than ever, and just loving it. And, super excited. And same here, man. I mean, the records are just, you're looking back and you're thinking, holy crap, that used to be something I look forward to. Like, this number was something I thought we couldn't get to. And now, like, holy crap, we're crushing that, like 2x that. And it's like, holy moly. I know it's a part of the times, but it's also part of just constant growth inside, and helping others grow as well is definitely part of that. So today, guys, we have a special guest on. He grew up in a family landscape construction and nursery business, very similar to myself and Dwayne. And in 1958, they were mowing lawns, and now they're top 100 powerhouse companies in the nation. They focus more on an environmentally responsible landscape. So not just your typical paver patios and bushes slapped in around the house, but more about trying to integrate nature into the space so that you're not trying to chase the wildlife out. You're trying to bring it in, right? So you're not looking for deer resistant plants. You're looking for plants and things like that that'll actually attract that wildlife into the space. He's been published in tons of different articles, all over the country. He's definitely a pioneer in his industry with this more naturalistic design style. So it's really kind of cool to see what he does and how he takes ideas and creates the most naturalistic solution for it. His company is Landserve, and his slogan is Landscapes for Life. So without any further ado, John Mariani, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Yourself?
I'm doing fantastic, man.
Sounds like you're doing very well. Yeah.
Trying to get my voice back here.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard about it, John, but you ever heard about the Tony Robbins UPW, John?
The what? I'm sorry?
It's called Tony Robbins. It's called a UPW, Unleash the Power Within.
I've heard of it, but I don't know much about that. Okay.
Yeah. Joshua and I both, we've actually done several of them, but we just completed one this weekend, and it's like 12, 14-hour days. It's yelling, screaming, jumping. It's like opening up your soul to the world. So that's why both of us, we can barely talk, and we're sort of zenned out right now because of the experience.
Oh.
And this is actually, I think Josh brought his wife before, but this is actually one of the first time I was actually able to bring my wife too. So it was pretty dope. And we had like 28 other people who came with us.
Okay. So now I understand. So I'm the one that has to do all the talking then now. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's fine.
That's what we're hoping for. That's for sure.
You have a lot to tell. You have a lot to tell.
For sure.
Yeah, totally understand. Yeah.
What if you can think back about your childhood and growing up in this business? What are some of your first memories you have working with your dad and grandfather? What did that look like for you?
Hard work, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Hard, sweaty, dirty work, and quite honestly, when I loved being outdoors. I did love that, and I loved the creatures I encountered while I was out there, along with the plants. I just had a natural interest for that, but the work was very, very hard, and it wasn't anything I was ever interested, I felt, in doing when I grew up. But it's funny; it kind of gets into your blood, and in fact, I'm third generation, in fact, and doing this type of work. So it did get into me, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. But I'm doing it in a little bit different way than the traditional way of dealing of working in the green industry, as you know.
Tell us a little bit about that. You say it's not traditional way. What does that mean?
Well, of course, I'm promoting native plants. I try to use it in all of my design, but I'm doing it for a purpose that I think is a much more altruistic purpose in landscape design. Right now, most of the green industry is utilizing non-native plants that, quite frankly, are creating a lot of problems for our environment. And especially, a lot of them are very invasive right now and displacing a lot of our native plants. And it's our native plants that create the habitat necessary for our wildlife. And it's part of the problem that we're having right now is that our wildlife is disappearing, and it's disappearing, quite frankly, because that habitat is disappearing as well. And without the habitat, you don't have the wildlife, and without our wildlife, it moves up the food chain from there, and then it affects us eventually in the entire world. And so the green industry, it has the greatest opportunity to make the greatest change by simply using native plants versus non-native plants in their landscapes. And I think that that needs to happen right away, because things are changing very, very quickly, and not for the better. So I'm trying to do what I can to make this change, and so that's my mission. And right now, nobody else is doing that. So I'm trying to set an example.
John, the last time we hung out, we were on the boat, all hanging out with a group of guys. And, normally by the end of the evening, people get to talking trash about how big their thing is, or how many women they're chasing, and how much they can do. And at the end of the evening, you went on for almost like 45 minutes about the passion about how you are on native plants. And I'll tell you straight up, it was so powerful to me that that's all I could think about on that hour and 45-minute drive home. And when I came back, I hit Joshua up. I said, we got to get John on here, because what he's saying, it shook me to my core. It actually put more fear into me than the COVID and what's going on. So do you mind going just a little deeper and letting everybody hear about how serious this shit is that we're dealing with? Like, this is scary stuff.
Yeah, quite frankly, I think, and if you talk to some other real experts like a Doug Ptolemy, entomologist, people that understand the bottom of the food chain with insects and what have you, he would say that this problem with our wildlife extinction and the direction that it's headed makes climate change look like a drop in the bucket. Because if we lose our plants and our wildlife, it's pretty much that, it's where life begins and ends. quite frankly. So we need to do something about that. We need to do it very, very quickly because, we've lost, we've lost a third of our species in my lifetime. That's pretty quick. And we've got another third of it on the way towards extinction right now. And, and a very simple solution right now, for example, if everyone went out and eliminated a third of their lawns and put it into native wildflowers, or planted 3 oak trees, we could save it. Something as simple as that. The majority of the land out there is still owned by private landowners. And so we have an opportunity. The green industry has an opportunity like no one else to simply start using native plants and to turn this whole thing around. And it would provide us for cleaner water, better soils. Most people, if they would start teaching ecology in the classroom in the younger, in first through fourth grade, first through fifth grade, I think it would go a long way towards people understanding how important this, the earth is, and how we need plants and animals for ourselves to be able to survive. And using these native plants are what are going to get us, what's really going to get us through all of this. And that's what's really going to help change things. I talk to architects all the time. They're talking sustainable housing, sustainable this and sustainable building. Well, as soon as you dig a big hole in the ground, you're displacing wildlife. Okay, you're doing a lot of damage. When a landscaper comes in and re-landscapes a home, we're doing we're creating all kinds of environmental impact. Those things have to be thought about before they're done, and what's going to be done to repair that damage. So what we're really talking about is not sustainability, it's a regenerative process that we have to be thinking about every time we go out there and do something on the land. We have to regenerate what's been lost, and a lot's been lost so far. It's not sustaining a problem that we have right now. It's fixing it every step of the way. And landscaping with native plants is where it all begins. Very simple. It's starting from planting a pot to complete landscaping, okay? And anytime you're doing any kind of planting whatsoever, use native plants. And that can be in very traditional landscape. See, here's the other problem. We've got ecological services and people trying to do landscapes. They think, okay, it's native plants. We need to design it in a very naturalistic way. Well, society's not ready for that. We can't take native plants and plant a prairie in somebody's front yard. The weed manager is going to show up and give you a ticket, and you're going to pay a fine, and you're going to be tearing it out. Okay, so we have to do it in ways that are culturally acceptable as well. Okay, that fit the neighborhood. That's what. You've got a colonial home there, or a Georgian colonial home. Learn your architecture and how to design native plants behind a traditional hedge of a type of plant that's a native shrub that can be sheared into a hedge, okay, et cetera, et cetera. Design in very traditional ways and arrange your native plants so that, wildlife's not going to care how it's arranged typically. There's some instances where it will matter, but in general, it's getting those native plants out into the landscape. And I think that'll be a wonderful beginning for now to saving our wildlife and making it for a much better world for everybody. And we'll get much farther along in this problem that we now have with climate change and environmental problems in general.
Got it. Now, John, do you run into the situation where when you meet with a client and start talking about sustainability and about ecologically minded, spaces and all that, where their mind is like, in the typical majority where I want boxwoods and I want roses and I want that New England look or whatever the hell it might be, right? And then having to say, nope, you can't have any of that. Here's how we're going to do it. When I'm done, you won't even know I was here. Right, because the house will look like it was built in the forest 1,000 years ago. How have you handled that conversation with people?
Well, you have to be a businessman too, and you have to know how to market things. You have to know how to sell things. You still have to do all those things too. It's funny, in landscape architecture, if you're a good landscape architect, you have to be not only an artist and an engineer and a scientist, you also have to be a salesman. And there are times when, and that goes for a lot of all business, really. Anytime you're in a business, okay. And I landscape their homes in a very traditional manner with native plants. And it's not until I'm finished where I might consider mentioning the word native and what I just did for them. And I will wait until they respond to me that they're very happy with what they have. And I mentioned that what I just did for them, and they're even more excited about the fact that now they're going to also have this extra added dimension of an interest of beautiful birds and butterflies. And sometimes I won't mention the bees and the snakes and all the other things they're going to get along with that as well, that are also going to create this wonderful interest in their gardens. Yeah. And then it works.
I like it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I like how you approach that though, because you're not trying to sell it in the beginning. You're not trying to, convince them of anything. You're showing them in the design what it's going to look like. They love the design. It's done. They're like, this is awesome. And in addition to that, these are all natives. So you're not impacting the ecological, area negatively. It's only a positive. And next thing you know, they feel good inside that it's done. But if you're right, if you would come up to them and say, look, we're only going to do it with native plants, they'd be like, oh, native plants are boring. Nobody wants those things. They're just weeds. Hell, I got those and the neighbors got those in that lot next to me. Why the hell would I pay you to do that? Right. So I like your approach there. I think it's a wise approach. Now, have you ever worked with more of a hybrid system where you do some of the more traditional stuff and then integrate natives so that you have some of that in there so it's not completely foreign to the environment?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And people have their favorite plants, old-fashioned plants like lilacs and magnolias and hollyhocks and the things that they remember from grandma's garden and what have you. And as long as they're not invasive, I'll certainly use them. It makes people happy, and you want people out in their gardens, and there's no problem with that. The only problem with that sort of thing is that it's displacing what would otherwise be a native plant, but that's about it. Okay. There's no problem with it.
John, what's causing this? And I don't want to call out any names, so I'll try to say this without saying manufacturers' names, but are we having like manufacturers creating and propagating plants that's just not natural? Is that some of the issues that we're having?
Yes. You can't put your name on a native plant. You can't patent it. You can't trademark it. You can't copyright it. You can cultivate it, create a cultivar of that plant, and then you can market it under your name and make royalties from that. That's one thing. Okay. And then there's always somebody trying to make, it's an exciting field, horticulture. You can not only you can take pride in creating a better flower, a better this, a better, it's got more color, this, echinacea, purple coneflower. That plant has gone from a true native plant to, I can't tell you how many different cultivars now, from orange to white to different shades of purples and the problem with that plant is, number one, most of them are sterile, and the ones that aren't sterile don't provide the pollens and the nectars necessary for the insects that depend on that particular plant, the native plant. They don't provide that for them. Okay. So now they can't use that plant for food. They can't lay their egg. They can't eat it. They can't lay their eggs on it, or some other problem with that plant. Worse yet, they're attracted to that plant and away from the native plant. Okay, so now they starve to death, or their young starve to death. If they lay their eggs on it, there's all kinds of issues with using what they call nativars. Okay, and so I would rather promote a non-native, non-invasive plant than a nativar, quite honestly, because otherwise what you're telling people is it's okay to use nativars. Now the problem is that the nurseries aren't growing enough natives. They're, because they feel like, well, the answer I've heard from growers is that, well, that's what people want, are the nativars and the non-native plants. That's what they want. No, that's
what they're being sold.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what they're being sold.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually,
John,
I read something that bees themselves. I'm sorry, Joshua. I read something that bees and insects, like you were saying, they won't even do anything to these basically cultivars, whatever you call them. They won't even propagate with them. They won't use them. And it's like we're losing the bee population just from these simple plants that are being,
that's right.
Basically made in a lab somewhere. Like, this is crazy. Like, they're making plants in a lab. Like, clients don't even think. They see plant comes out of dirt. They're like, oh, this thing's natural. They don't think it. Nobody thinks it's sort of a synthetic plant,
Well, they objectify, landscape architects. I'm a degreed landscape architect. We've always looked at plants as objects to move around in the landscape. And quite honestly, when I design, I take a circle, I take objects and I move them. It's the best way to design. Okay. I don't even worry about what the plant is. It's a great way to design. Okay. Or the other materials. I don't worry about it. I plug that in after the fact. Okay. It's the best way to design. But plants are more than objects. They're way more than objects, much more important than objects, because they are the habitat at the very bottom of the food chain that provides life for everything else, including ourselves eventually, and the soils, and clean our waters, and do all these other things. Not the non-natives. They don't do that for us. It's our native plants. It took 10,000 years for these, and they have defense, all plants have created these defense mechanisms so that insects won't eat them. They have poisons in them. So it's specific, specific insects have then, over the last 10,000 years, they've developed these ways to be able to coexist with these plants. Okay, it takes that long. All right, so certain plants, like the monarch butterfly with milkweed. Milkweed's poisonous to almost every insect except for a few beetles, bugs, milkweed bug, and the monarch butterfly. No other butterfly can eat that leaf and have its young on that plant, on that species of plant. Okay, because it'll kill it. But this one loves it. All right.
It's amazing.
So, but it took thousands of years for that to happen. Yeah. Thousands. This doesn't happen overnight. Now you're bringing these other plants, and they can't do anything with that plant.
Yeah.
It's like butterfly bush. Oh, it's a great pollinator. The butterflies are super attracted to that plant. And so they bring them in and they sell them that way and they market them that way. The problem with that plant is, sure, they can feed on it, but they can't do anything else with it. They can't lay their eggs on it. They can't. So now their young have nowhere to go, and it attracts them like crazy, but it attracts them away from the better plants that they need to lay their eggs on. So it's actually a really bad plant. It's a non-native plant.
That's really amazing.
Yeah.
Now, John, I can feel your passion for this subject, and I'm full with you right there, brother, heart to heart. Now, Where did this passion come from? Where did you start? Where did you realize this was a thing? Like, what drives your passion to be so different and to stand out?
Gosh, well, I wasn't that great at sports, so I went out and walked around a lot. I fished a lot. Mm-hmm. Well, my high school team I was on a starter on our high school team. We did win the state championship, so I guess we weren't too bad. But but I still didn't consider myself very good. Anyway, I just, my mom, my whole family, my dad would bring home red squirrels that would fall out of the trees. My mom would bring home a baby rabbit, put a little watch next to it. What was that about? It's the heart, pounding, mom, because she doesn't have a mother. I don't know. I just thought they were, I love little baby bunnies, I mean, could never eat one. I don't know. I'm just super attracted to, you know what? I think most people have a real connection, are fascinated by wildlife. I think most people are. I think some people have just have never been able to experience it. I grew up on a 100-acre nursery, City kids don't get that opportunity. That's why you need to get them out into nature. And I think once you do, I mean, when I walked through the woods when I was a kid, I was bored to death. It's when you learn about it, when you start to learn about it, boy, it starts to become pretty darn interesting. And you have to really get down there and focus on it. Probably the best thing you do is give a kid a microscope or get them a magnifying glass. Yeah, I know he's going to burn a few ants and things with it. But,
of course,
right? That's what boys do. But he's still going to learn, too. He's going to learn about that stuff, and he'll never do it again once he does learn about that sort of thing. And he's going to get in there real close and have him get his hands dirty, get her hands dirty, and get in there. My daughter is crazy about wildlife. One that's just nuts about wildlife as well. Probably because I took her out there a lot with me. As long as you share that experience with someone, I can guarantee you most kids will pick that up and really run with it. And that's what we have to do. We have to you have to start the kids young, get them out there in nature. And that's how we're going to save this planet. But boy, I just, when I saw that the monarch butterfly was I don't know if it's endangered. I think, everything it gets overblown sometimes. I think these things ebb and flow. One year, for 20 years, we'll have a lot of them, and then they'll decline. I'm hoping that's the case. But for something that common to have problems really scares me. That scares me to death, because that means we have a problem. That's the way I relate to that.
Yeah, John, I got a question about business, and I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but a lot of our listeners, they're going to know you from Mariani Landscape too. I mean, you got that company was like the top 100 in the country, and then you switched over to your new operation. I don't really want to know much about the company, but what was some of the tips that you did to help grow it and then take that over to the new operation that you are now?
Well, I was always a perfectionist, that's for sure. I mean, I wrote all the procedures. I mean, I taught all the procedures to everybody as well. And maintenance was actually a big part of what I taught there, because how to perform things horticulturally correct. That's something I did, and that's really what I've kind of brought over to. We started as a maintenance company at Mariani. My dad had a little lawn mowing service. The nursery was my grandfather, and the contracting was my grandfather. And my dad had a lawn mowing service. My grandfather would feed my dad the maintenance, so I brought that to my business, in that things need to be neat and orderly. Okay, for the native landscape to take off, I think. I really do. I think that's what's missing. When I went to school, when I was at U of I, there was a professor there by the name of Joan Nassauer, who's somewhat famous for her slogan, Cues to Care. And she did studies in the 90s about how native landscapes can only be so wild looking, and then it gets to a point where people just can't accept it. It's got to look like it's being cared for, a fence around it, 30% of it being lawn, and plants somewhat arranged or at least framed out nicely so that there's a cue there that somebody's caring for it. Okay. And it's funny, I didn't learn that from her when I was in school. She went to the University of Michigan and did this report in the 90s. I wasn't in school in the 90s. I wasn't in school in the 70s. And but I picked up on it later. I saw her name and said, wow, this just happens to be right up my alley, and I learned a little bit about that from her too. And but anyway, that cue to care is what really is going to make this fly. And so I would say probably be the maintenance side of things that I brought to my business, LandServe, Landscapes for Life, that really makes the difference. Really makes the difference. Yeah.
Now, when you shifted from working with a family business to going into your own, what was your reasoning for switching out and starting the next company, your next step? Like, what was the catalyst for that?
I was frustrated because one was a luxury business.
Mm.
Okay. And, it didn't fulfill my need for doing something for the greater good. That's what you have to do in life. At least I have to. I don't want to end my life knowing I just made money. Just made other people and just sold Ferraris.
Yep.
That's not very fulfilling in my mind. I sold some nice landscapes,
risky.
Designed some nice places, multi-million-dollar landscapes, but
it's risky too. I actually had a call yesterday where a client called up and he said, hey, I have all the contractors, everybody's ready to go. I just need you guys to draw the design. And it would have been an easy way of me collecting some money. I'd charged him whatever, just because he said that I'd have charged him out the ass and made some money. And after he said that, something hit me. And I said, we're a transformational business, not a transactional business. So I said, without having the designer involved through the entire project, it's never going to be what I design.
Right.
So what's going to happen is you're going to pay me a certain amount of money. I'm going to be happy that you paid me, but the value that you're going to get when it comes to building, you're not going to get that. And so honestly, John, I feel that because I've actually become that in the past 2-3 years is what you took a risk on and said, let me walk away from this family operation that's just clocking dollars to doing something I really believe in. I mean, there's a spot in heaven for people like us, I believe,
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, there's more to it than that as well. I mean, working for a family is not easy.
Right.
Especially 40 years of that. So there's more to it than that. But this is definitely, I feel so good about doing this. It's just so important, and it's so necessary. And, I think more people need to do it. I'd love to grow my business. I'd love to be able to do it for more people. I prefer not to grow this into another big business. That's the thing. I like doing this. I like being able to walk out. I have 60 acres of my own land I'm restoring, pretty much by myself on top of it. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm in the middle of a pre-European settlement restoration of my own land, which I've been doing for 15 years. So I walk out every single morning with my dog, and I pull weeds and prune things and, spray things and do all kinds of things on my own land. Then I go out, which I love. I got a smile on my face every time I pull an invasive species. And then when I come home at night, I do the same darn thing every single day, which I love. It's great, but I couldn't do that if I had even a single employee. I feel like I do this myself, and I'm able to pay the bills, and that's really all I want to do. By the same token, I can go anywhere in the world in design and pull together some contractors to be able to pull the work together. And so it's really a great situation. I think I can pretty much help anybody do this for themselves and build it. And soft and hardscape using all indigenous materials, which I think just fits the landscape anyway. Like my place, I use all Wisconsin flagstone, so you're not driving from New York with bluestone. Okay, so we're keeping carbon footprint down, and we're also working with materials that make sense, that look right, that fit, that are context sensitive. Okay, they just work well. They make sense. When you look at them, they feel like they should be there. You know, and quite frankly, I think architects would do better to do that themselves, because I just think it would. That's the way buildings were always made, and that's why when you go to Wisconsin, what do you expect to see? Certain type birch trees. I don't know, log homes and modern farm building. Farm home style. Certain styles of architecture. When you go out east, you expect to see Georgian colonials, and there's certain reasons why there are brick houses there. They fit the way people lived and the types of materials that were available. Those materials are still available there, okay? The weather's still the same there. So the roofs pitch a certain way because of the weather there and all that. So it all makes sense. And quite frankly, it's probably greener because of that, because they dealt with the weather in more logical ways, see? So that all makes sense. If people would just go back and look at history, they'd probably solve a lot more problems that way. And
the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it was actually all brick at one time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because that was like, they were like Claycraft. They were getting all the brick from, I think, Ohio or something. It was real close to them. Yeah. I mean, you can't drive 200 miles per hour on some fucking bricks right now. So it's only on the finish line. You feel that bump and shit when you hit the finish line.
Yeah, it all makes sense. It makes it unique. You go to Milwaukee, you see that Cream City brick that came out of their own local, pits, and it's unique. It's really unique. Anyway, that all makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, John, I have those conversations with my clients as well, because we always want a good, solid architectural connection to the house. And you see so many guys that don't know what they're doing, and gals too, that are designing. They're just adding new stuff in, and nothing makes sense. It looks like a bolt on in the back of the house, and you're like, oh my God, shit. All right, well.
Hey, stop talking about me. I was one of them.
Well, I was too in the beginning too, trust me.
But this whole concept you just cover it.
That's right. Just cover it with bushes. I love it. Or vines, right? But, to think about the architectural connection to the house and using materials that are true to the home. And then you back that up a little further to your point and think that only 100 years ago or less, the only option was local options. You didn't have trucking across the continent. You weren't buying containers of flagstone from China and bringing it over here and calling it natural. There's none of that. So you used what you had. If you lived in an area with a lot of limestone or flagstone, that was all you used. If you had a 100-acre farm, you built everything from the stone on that farm, from the fence rows, from the fields, because that's what you had. So to go back to the beginning and think, okay, now how do we design this space to do that? And be truthful to the architecture of the home and the materials available at the time. And if that's not the case, how do we at least stay true to the architecture of the house and the materials that have already been chosen for it? So it feels cohesive and all-inclusive of those materials, and not have, for instance, a faux stone in the front and then a brick in the back, which makes no sense, or, a natural stone in the front. And then you're like, oh, we're just going to use siding on the fireplace in the back. It's just, it happens so often, and people just don't think about those details. They don't think about, wow, there might actually be a communication between materials on this property, not just inside, outside, but inside, outside, and everywhere.
Right. And it's crazy because of cost. It's just, just not thinking it through. Just not.
They just don't exactly. They just don't think through it. They think, all right, well, I can just put it together. I'm like, all right, we'll do the stone in the front of the house. We'll do vinyl siding around the rest of the house. Okay, now it's as unnatural as you can get, but it is what it is. Okay, now we go to the backyard. What are we gonna do? Well, let's just do some crazy paver nobody's ever seen. Texturally, it makes no sense with the house, and you look at the shape, then it's just this crazy amoebic shape. You have the squaredness of the house. You have all these 90-degree angles, these sharp lines. And then you go right out into the landscape with all these amoebic, contours, which don't make any sense for the translation between the home being very rigid and the nature being very non-rigid. There needs to be a convergence zone where we marry the two together. And that's where we get to play, right? As designers, we get to play in that zone, but doing some curve, some straight, and blending it into the nature to go all natural again.
Exactly. And there might come the day when all of that does come together and we're back to very naturalistic landscapes on top of it, because the home will make sense with it. Right now, that's not going to happen. So,
John, I got the perfect question for you right now too, because it actually lines all the stuff up. You guys have been like, okay, let me load this up a little bit. I come from Columbus, Ohio. We did some landscaping. I really didn't even see dope ass outdoor living space landscaping until I met you guys, Dean and all of them. I didn't even know that stuff existed, especially some of that stuff on the North Shore. Okay, you guys have been seeing these really nice, neat outdoor living spaces, plants, everything for a very long time. I'm working in a market now where I'm actually winning like a mother effort because I'm waking a lot of people up and I'm getting people to respect what's going on in their outdoor living. What can I do more? What can we help do more here to convince people more that what we do, and if they let us do it right, it's going to gain value in their property? Because you've been doing it all day long. I mean, you've been doing it for the past 30 years. How can we wake these people up in the western suburbs, to understand what's going on?
To give them more value in their landscape? Well, form follows function, first of all. I mean, have it work for them. Shade trees to give them shade on the right side of the house. I mean, landscapes that actually work to frame their home so that it brings the view to their house and away from their neighbors. It shades their home. First of all, trees, number one, are the best value by far. Shade trees are the best value by far of any other plant. They live the longest. They bring the scale, they add scale. Okay. They do so many, they give you shade, they frame, they do all the things that no other plant can do. Okay. And then it works down from there to your ornamentals and et cetera, down to your ground covers being the last, and your lawn. Okay. Those are the things. So that's how that works. Okay. Evergreens, try to use as few as possible because they're the most expensive. Okay. And when you do use them, you're going to use them only where they're needed for screening, really, mostly screening, framing, hiding things, because they cost twice as much as the same size plant in a evergreen plant, flowering shrub or ornamental, what have you. They're twice as much. They cost twice as much, and they do nothing except give you green. They don't do much beyond that. Now you're limited with evergreens anyway if you're going to use native plants. In the Midwest there are very few native evergreens. Red cedars and a few your spreading evergreens, but there are very few. So think about how you're using them and promote how you're using them for their good, for shade, for screening, for doing all of these things. And that's one way of showing them value. Not just decorating the turkey. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
If you look at my house, I have one plant on my foundation. The rest of them are big old oaks all around my house. And then prairie beyond my real interesting small lawn that winds in and out. And I think lawns are really important for a lot of reasons, as long as they're not too big. They're safety for your home from fire. They show off your architecture very, very nicely. They're either for entertaining for the kids to play in. You have to have some lawn. Now, there are ways of dealing with your lawn where they can be a little better environmentally. You can have what are called bee lawns that have a nice mix of fescues and clovers and other things. Clover used to be part of a grass mix until the Masters golf event became popular on TV back in the 50s. But before that, clover was part of the seed mix because it has nitrogen in it. And that way you didn't have to fertilize your lawn. It is a nitrogen fixing plant. So anyway,
that's a problem for fertilizer companies though. When you can get it naturally, why the hell would you buy the fertilizer? So take out the natural nitrogen. Now you are responsible for putting in more. Right. So synthetic, it's crazy.
That's one way of giving value. And of course, which is really interesting. My clientele the clientele that call me, of course, are interested in native plants, right? And they're interested in, they're also altruistic minded people who want to do the right thing. Okay. I don't have to sell them on value.
Yeah.
They've already bought in. They just want those native plants, and hopefully I can arrange them in an aesthetically pleasing manner.
Yeah.
It's a totally different type of clientele.
Yep, for sure.
That's what's really interesting about my clientele.
So John, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm a contractor just getting started out or been in business for a long time, and I really love what I'm hearing right now. I love the idea of sustainability. I love the idea of helping the environment. I love the idea of being able to do that and making some money too, right? It weighs on my heart heavily that I need to do something. How the hell would I get started? What do I do? How do I even integrate that? How do I learn about native plants? How do I know how to design with them? Like, what are some tips you can give us on that? Well,
first of all, as far as designing with them goes, you're going to design, you're going to probably, if you're in the residential market, you're going to learn about your architecture and how to design to complement architecture, because most of it's around a home, and people's expectations are that it's going to complement their home and how they use their home. Like I just talked about, you're going to form follows function. You're going to create that design in a way that gives them value in shading and screening and doing all those things, and guiding circulation and doing all of those things. Allows for pushing snow, all of those things. Okay. And that design will evolve. Okay. Complements the architecture, all of those things. Okay. And it's going to evolve. If they have a contemporary home or some type of home or a big lot that'll accommodate a naturalistic landscape, your best bet, I think, is to go out into nature and to look at little scenes and take pictures of vignettes of scenes that you think are nice compositions. I'll do that. I'll go out into the field. I'll see a stand of aspen at the edge of a prairie, or usually a farm field these days that was a prairie. And I'll look at that. And I'll look at that against the woodland or a background of juniper, and it comes down into brambles or hawthorns down into the prairie. Right there. Okay. That's a natural transition. I'll repeat somewhere. Okay. Nice. Or you'll see a stand of sumac, or a stand of gray dogwood, or a stand of red twig dogwood. And they're a colonizing plant. Okay. How do you arrange that plant? Well, you take little 18 inches, not the big 36 or 48 inches. Start them as 24 inches because they grow 2 feet a year. No reason to get big ones. And put them close together so that they're a suckering plant, right? So, they're a stoloniferous, rhizomatous, both plant that'll sucker out real quick. You don't want to see them in rows. So you put them close together, starting as small plants, so they're getting good value. You're not starting with big plants. They grow right away into a nice little colony, and you group them together in a colony. and you use them that way in a little prairie scene or in the middle of a yard or just whatever, in a way that makes sense, in the way that plant would naturally grow, which, by the way, creates a situation that's less maintenance because that's the way they want to grow. See? Yeah. So arrange things like they want to grow in nature. It'll be less maintenance. They'll make more sense. And when you learn how to use them that way, you'll tie together a composition that makes sense. I love red twig dogwood with aspens too. Now you've got contrast, see? Winterberry holly's great with aspen, with birch, Now you still have to know, first of all, see what's available. Go through your nursery catalogs and see what's even out there to use, or you're wasting your time, all right? See what's there, learn what conditions they like, wet, dry, shade, sun, just like any other plant. And there are a lot of native plants that we've been using, cockspur hawthorn, all your oak, quite a few of your oaks, your sugar maples, all not black alder, but gray alder. Okay. There's a lot of basswoods. We use a lot of native plants, that have been available to us forever. People just don't know they're natives. Just find out what's locally native. There's a great book out there called Plants of the Chicago Region. Okay. Which one? Who's the Swink and Wilhelm? By Swink and Wilhelm, Plants of the Chicago Region. Those are all our native plants. Yeah. That's here. Okay. Now out east, I'm sure there's a book out there although a lot of our plants are interchangeable, Yeah.
And I can see this being an opportunity for our listeners to create a market for themselves like you have, right? To be having this conversation with their clients, regardless of how it comes up, but more about, guys, look, we can do this. We can just throw in bushes that are, decorative bushes to the turkey, like you mentioned earlier, or we can focus on them actually having an impact on your environment. And I believe as we move forward in the future, we're going to have a lot more awareness of this, with global climate change and with just, we see these species being wiped out left and right. And it's all because of us, right? So how can we lessen our impact on the planet? So if you're having that conversation with your clients and that's what you stand for because that resonates with you, if it doesn't, that's fine. But if it does, and you have the opportunity to open up a whole nother conversation with your clients, which differentiates you and also gives you a competitive edge against the others that are just slinging in, named bushes everywhere. And you're coming in saying, look, no, we're going to help with the pollinators. We're going to help with the birds. We're going to be helping with the bunnies, all of this kind of stuff. And that's our entire approach is to build the ecology around your property so that nature comes back to you. And that could be a tremendous way, if that's something that lands in your heart, a tremendous way to be able to engage this idea and be able to still do the same thing you're doing, but doing it in a much more conscious way. Would you say so, John?
I would say so. And I do think people need to learn a land ethic. That would help too. Okay. If they would just read Aldo Leopold's book on land ethic, it's called the Sand County Almanac. It's the one book I would recommend to everybody. I give it away. And in fact, it's a good book for people that want to get into this business to give to their clients. It's inexpensive. It's called Sand County Almanac. And it just, nobody could ever write a book any better than this man did, Aldo Leopold. Okay. He's the father of modern conservation. Very simple, short read on the land ethic. And it just gets you thinking about the land and why it's important and creatures. And one other thing I would mention too is that when you're trying to sell your landscapes, try to sell the little creatures that go along with it. And I like to talk about the birds and the butterflies because those are the things that most people are interested in. Yeah, don't talk about the snakes and the toads and the other little, especially to the ladies. Of course, I have a buddy of mine that snakes. Oh my God, you bring those up and conversation's over. Because that really is people love birds and butterflies.
Love that.
And show them those too. hey, this is what, with this plant, you're going to attract those, that particular bird that hasn't been around for 50 years, you know? Wow.
So John, it was great hanging with you. And matter of fact, I do have to take you up on the golfing. I mean, you did
That's
invite
right.
me. Josh is going to be in town in January for like 6 weeks in a row. And so we do need to come up to your property and take a look at that.
Absolutely.
But I also want to end with one of the things that we do at the end is how can our listeners find you? And like, how can they call you? Are you on Facebook? Or are you on, like, where can they track you down?
I'm on Facebook, but I'm not that active on Facebook. LinkedIn. And of course, I have a website. It's www.John L, as in Luke, Mariani, MARIANI.com. You have to throw that
That's
L
perfect.
in there, or you'll get John Mariani, the food critic, out in New York, I think.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, John, I've certainly appreciated our conversation today, and I hope it opened up some story loops in your minds out there, listeners, to start thinking about landscape in a different perspective. And that's why we wanted to have John on the show to open up, that conversation. And if this falls in your heart and you're like, I really want to make an impact for not just for me, but for my kids and my grandkids and their kids as well. This is the direction you need to go. This is where the world's going. And we need to go from being super smart to realizing that we're idiots, and we need to go back to what nature originally gave us and be much more focused on working with Mother Nature, not against her. So John is an excellent example of that and a pioneer in this industry. So reach out to him if you have questions about this, this type of a strategy. And also, thanks for listening, guys. And as you know, our goal is to impact and empower 2 million, contractors in our market and other markets as well, design build contractors. And so if you know of anybody that would get value from, listening to content that we have here on the podcast, please share it with, even if it's just one person, because that's going to help us grow our connection with people and also be able to have a bigger conversation as we move forward and change this industry that we all love. So thanks for tuning in, guys. And we'll look forward to speaking to you next time.